Something is messing with my head. Well, it's either that or I'm going insane. The past few weeks have been stressful for me. My college classes were piling on homework, quizzes, and exams, and I was swamped with trying to make the time for everything. Maybe that's why I wrote off everything that was happening at first. I just chalked it up to stress. I don't think it's just stress anymore. It started about 2 weeks ago when I started to feel very anxious right as I was falling asleep, as if something were there watching me. My dog sleeps in my bed with me, and she never had any reaction to it, so I figured it was just me being stressed out. Over the past few weeks, the anxiety has been growing worse, but again, no reaction from my dog, so again, I decided it was stress. Then school stopped being stressful. I could relax, take my mind off of things, and it was great. I took a nap. That was really more like 6 hours, catching up on all the sleep that I had missed out on. I thought it could get better, but I was wrong. So wrong. 3 nights ago, as I was drifting off to sleep, I felt the familiar anxiety return. I was going to wave it off when I noticed that my dog was softly growling at something. My room was too dark to tell where she was looking at as she growled. I reached over to grab my phone, which has a flashlight, but before I could reach it, it felt like something was grabbing my wrist, burning it and pinning it back against the bed. My heart raced, but I remained silent. Screaming wouldn't help anyway. No one else was in the house, and the neighbors' houses are a pretty good distance away. Instead, I tried to focus on freeing my wrist, but nothing I tried would help. Another burning sensation, this time around my ankle. It felt like something was both burning me and attempting to pull me out of my bed at the same time. All I could do was resist being pulled and wait for it to stop, all the while trying to stave off the panic that was threatening to overcome me. It took a long time, but it did eventually stop. Sleep did not come easily for me that night. When I did finally sleep, my dreams were filled with things from nightmares, bleeding walls, cryptic messages, pretty much the usual night terrors. When I woke up the next day, I decided that my experience last night was just nerves, or a particularly bad dream, or something. That is, until I walked out into the kitchen. The light kitchen. I made it a point the night before to walk through the entire house and turn off all the lights, and I know I double-checked it. It had definitely been off the night before. Again, there was no one else in the house, so how could the light have been turned on? I've been trying to convince myself that I somehow forgot to turn it off, or that maybe I was sleepwalking and turned it on, but I remember specifically turning that light off because I was using my phone's flashlight to make my way to my room. And I don't have a history of sleepwalking, so of course, that was just the beginning. The rest of my day was somewhat normal, except that I would occasionally feel like I was being watched. But several searches throughout the house told me that I was alone. Nothing particularly eventful happened until later that night. I drove to my sister's house to visit her for a while, and on the way there, I started to feel really lightheaded. I ignored it and made it to my sister's house, but after a few hours, I wasn't really feeling very well. So I stepped outside to get some fresh air. While I was outside, leaning on the front porch, I entertained myself, by looking around at the neighbors' houses across the street. The one, over there had some interesting trees. The one next to it had a weird poodle statue. And the one next to that... Wait, did that poodle just move? I stared at the statue, certain that it had moved and thinking that maybe it was an actual dog that had just been sitting still. No. A few minutes of staring assured me that it was a statue. I was going to look away when, ever so slightly, the poodle's head started to tilt to the side. It kept turning until it was almost 90 degrees different from where it had started. Then, it slowly started turning back. I blinked and rubbed my eyes, but when I opened them, I saw something even more strange. The statue was smiling. The unnatural grin started spreading wider and wider until the poodle no longer looked like a poodle, but more like a weird face with 2 black circles for eyes and a wide, sharp-toothed grin that took up the rest of the face. I scrambled back toward the door, only looking away when I accidentally ran into a chair. I looked back up at the unnatural grin, and it was gone. In its place was the poodle statue, as innocent as ever, That's when I really started thinking that there was something actually wrong, that I wasn't imagining things. I went back inside and visited with my sister for a little longer, then made my way back home. It was late and my head was still killing me when I pulled up into the driveway. By now, every shadow seemed to be twisting and turning to something sinister around me, but all I could think was that I felt so tired. I dragged myself to bed, making sure to turn off all the lights along the way and definitely double-checking all of them after what had happened that morning. It didn't take long for me to fall asleep that night, but I didn't get much rest. I kept waking up, hearing footsteps outside my door, but since my dog didn't growl, I would simply shut my eyes and wait for them to stop. If it were a human intruder, my dog would have been barking up a storm, and it did not want to meet whatever else could be making those noises. Yesterday, I woke up to a quiet house. Everything seemed normal, the lights were still off, everything where I left it normal. I was skeptical at first, moving throughout the entire house before believing that there was nothing and no one there. But finally I relaxed, and I was fine for a few hours. Around 12, I started getting paranoid. There was something watching me. I just knew it. Shadows showed fleeting figures, and I kept blacking out for short periods of time. It would only be for a few minutes, but it was still strange and disconcerting. I decided to text my friend to distract myself and calm myself down, which worked until my dog started barking at the air. There was nothing there. No one outside or across the street. She was just barking at the wall. The paranoia came back full speed. It's nothing. Just the dog being weird, I tried to convince myself, fear nearly freezing me to the couch. Then I blacked out or something because I remembered darkness. Then images, terrible images, rotten carcasses, blood flowing as a river, a goblet being dipped into the river, and a shadowy form blinking in and out of sight. I couldn't move. Ropes bound me to some kind of vertical surface. Something around my wrists and ankles felt like it was burning me, but I couldn't turn my head to see. I was trapped as the shadowy figure, holding the goblet and blinking in and out of existence, approached me. That same grin on its face as I saw on the poodle statue. Suddenly, blood was being poured over me, trailing down my body as the shadowy figure thrust the goblet to my lips, tilting my head back and forcing me to drink. I sputtered, trying to avoid swallowing the dark red liquid, but I couldn't help but to swallow some. Then I was back in my living room. My dog had stopped barking and was lying down at the foot of the couch where I sat, having apparently been staring at the wall for who knows how long. I felt lightheaded and had a metallic taste in my mouth that I couldn't get rid of for the rest of the day, but nothing else happened. I had a friend sleep over in the guest room, not telling him what had happened, and I found that I had no nightmares. I woke up this morning thinking that it might be over. No nightmares, no worries, right? I was wrong. My neighbor had left before I got out of bed to go to school, so I was alone when I walked out to the kitchen. The light was on, but that wasn't very significant, seeing as how my neighbor just left. I turned around to head down the hallway and stopped dead in my tracks. There was blood splattered all over the walls, and the corner where the wall met the ceiling was dripping thick, dark red and black liquid mush. My dog was barking at the wall again, but I barely noticed. I closed my eyes, shook my head to clear it, and the image was gone. It was just my wall, normal as ever. The metallic taste was back in my mouth, but I ignored it, needing to get away, needing to go and just get ready for school. The rest of today so far has been filled with me being lightheaded, almost passing out a few times, and jumping at strange shadows flickering across my vision. Am I going insane? Or is something going to happen? Is something doing this to me? I've been thinking about getting a rosary, making some salt circles, etc. I would try to cleanse the house, but I don't think whatever it is attached to me is attached to the house. I have to head to my class now, but I'll update if anything more happens.